Previously on The Business.
Mike Sharman from Retroviral Digital Communications is in the studio. Would you like to join in the spat this morning?
You guys have managed to put the fear of God into me after all that talk of how expensive children are going to be. So I'm definitely going to have to use this show as a contraceptive. Thank you very much.
No problem. Compliments of Kriya.
No problem.
From retroviral.co.za, that is your website. We're having a look at that today. First of all, welcome to the show. Great to have you here. Tell us about Retroviral. What do you guys get up to?
Thanks for having me. Retroviral is essentially an online word-of-mouth creation agency. So we've taken kind of principles from traditional comms, saying that communication hasn't changed, but now there's more channels. That's where the retro and the viral essentially plug in together. Astrid looks like she has a question.
I do, Mike, because I can relate to what you're saying. I do a lot of work in this space as well. And because this is my moonlighting job. Ian. Yeah. So anyway, I do a lot of work in this space, and I get quite nervous when clients look at me and say, we want a campaign that'll go viral.
Yes, so do we.
Yes. Let's just talk a little bit about that. I mean, what is going on there? Why do clients think that you can create content for them that will go viral? And how do you tackle that challenge?
We're just that good, Astrid. No, but seriously though, we have a huge problem with the generic construct of viral, and viral, like we always say, is in the eye of the beholder. And I think the most important thing is always to stop, take a step back, and you'll appreciate that we're very much strategically focused. So we'll say to a client, what are your business objectives and what are you trying to achieve? From there we'll be able to develop a strategy and the relevant tactics that will work accordingly. For us, video content is very important. We've seen a lot of results and success with the clients that we work on over the last almost 4 years, coming up to our 4th birthday. And what we do is we look very much at creating remarkable content, seeding it to the right people, and then that's where we get the results. And that's part of something that we call the 3 R's. And for us, I mean, it's really important for the clients to understand that viral can be 100 views. I mean, if you've got a video for an automobile, for example, and you end up getting 100 views, and that leads to 10 conversions of car sales, I mean, I'd be pretty happy that that is viral for your target market. In the previous segment, you guys were talking about niche content and niche communities, and I think that's the important thing to understand, is that viral doesn't have a number. 1 million views is not viral, 10 views is not viral, but 10 views is probably a failure. But for us, it's all about strategy first and then creating remarkable content.
And how do you find your clients? How do clients find you?
It's been one of those interesting journeys. So a lot of the interactions and engagement started off on Twitter, and I speak at a lot of conferences and am quite vocal, and I'm quite opinionated about people and agencies that are ripping off clients or selling them an ideal, and then that video not going viral, for example. So we're very outspoken, and when we deliver on work, we like to put our hand on our hearts at the end of it and say, cool, we did a great job, or we could have done better, or look at the different metrics, so that we are creating a benchmark first off for a client that has never been in the digital space. And then from there, basically get to learn and continue to grow as we grow the relationship with that client and that brand.
This is going to come across as a little bit rude. It's not intended to be. I would like to know how much of this is luck. You often have the opportunity to put out campaigns. You often have the opportunity to make amazing viral stuff, which potentially can go viral. But then you must have the flops as well. You must look at some situations and scratch your head and go, but why? Does that happen to you?
Yeah, so I mean, we've developed a formula, and for us the most important thing in our sphere of influence is really influencers. So having worked in traditional communications and having worked in PR, a few years ago, journalists were your center of your universe in order to get brands spoken about.
Yes.
From an earned media point of view. So you'd create a remarkable piece of written content, ex-journalist would put it in the newspaper, which would be seen by 1 million, 100,000, whatever it may be, and then that's how your brand was able to communicate through the earned media space. Now, fortunately, with the digital environment, we have so many different channels, from Twitter to Facebook to YouTube, etc., etc. And one of our first stories, which is going to be in my book, when that eventually comes out, Life is Short, Play Naked. There you go, working title.
Sasha, did you hear that? Is he around?
So essentially, in the 2010, in November of 2010, we went to Nando's and we said to them, listen guys, we love what you do, we want to help you expand your reach into the digital space. Black River's producing amazing content, but we feel that it's not being maximized in the digital world. And at the time, that was when Julius wanted to shut down the Twitters, and then Black River put together the poster WTF Juju LOL. And they said to us, cool, if you want to show us, like, you know, put your money where your mouth is, show us what you can do. We took that poster and we just seeded it to a few relevant places like Two Oceans Vibe and a few other bits and pieces. Hurricane Vanessa blogged it, Cape Town Girl, I believe she posted it, and then I put it onto one of my personal blogs. And, you know, we hadn't really had a chance to see how quickly things can spread in South Africa, and I just recently moved back from London at the time, and on my personal blog alone we got 7,000 views on a Friday afternoon, like after work hours. It was posted on most of those blogs that we seeded to, and from there we were able to go back to them and say, look at this, people love the brand, they love the content, but you need a proper seeding strategy to go with that. And then from there, it was just a matter of trial and error. Like, we would put together as much strategy as possible. The first video that we seeded was the Celsi spoof video, which was the CEO video, and that got 100,000 views, and we were like high-fiving each other in the office, and that was all, those were all organic views. We also seeded it to expats in the UK and in Australia and New Zealand, so we got a lot of traction internationally too, with the guys that understood the connection between Celsi and Nando's. And then a year later, with the Last Dictator campaign, we created various different touch points. So we had Robert Mugabe lookalikes deliver blogger packs to influencers. We had a hashtag mechanic called Meal for Six to push the actual meal that was on promotion and to get people to share the names of 5 people, celebrities, friends, living or dead, that you would take to dinner. And that created this peer-to-peer sharing. So we try and do as much as possible to allow that content to be disseminated throughout these various channels. And yes, sometimes it can be seen by tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. And fortunately, on the Last Dictator campaign, that was seen by more than 1.8 million people in about a week. So the more and more high fives as we grew.
Mike, how do you resist losing focus? Because you have developed this reputation, and it's one of the reasons why you are doing so well is retaining that focus, finding that space that you do really well. But there's got to be the client who's going to say, they're starting to understand that they still need some kind of advertising. They still need to run a few banners, perhaps, et cetera, et cetera. And how do you resist the urge, or perhaps you don't, to take that on as well and say, okay, well, we can handle your entire digital presence end to end? Or do you think it's important to retain the focus and leave the media buying agencies to do that kind of thing?
Over the last 4 years, we've kind of drilled down to what our specialty is, and we love what we do and we know what we're good at. And the thing is, like, our vision for managing Twitter, managing Facebook accounts, like, that's a commodity, and that's going to be something that brands should pull in-house. Like, a lot of the bigger brands are wasting money going through an agency, in my opinion, and it'll irritate a lot of people.
But you've got to educate them first to be able to handle it on their own.
And I think, like, our strength is based on our honesty. So we won't just take $1 million and run, or whatever the budget may be. We'll push back and say, people have come to us and said, Mike, we've made this viral video and it's amazing. And I've had to sit at coffee shops with plugged in, listening to the video, watching it, with a table of like 8 dudes around me saying, what do you think? What do you think? Like, rubbing their hands and getting all excited. And then I have to take the earphones out and be like, guys, sorry, that's not going to go viral. Your video sucks. And I think it's because of the honesty. Like, we know what's going to work and what's not going to work. And we've had enough experience, and we've had, fortunately, we haven't had any major flops. So it's been 4 years. The reputation continues to grow. We've won a few awards, which, coming back to Ian's earlier question, has allowed us to get our own PR and get out there. And yeah, I like to see myself as the loud guy that I push back and I say, no, that's not going to work. And I think clients respect that more, because there's so many yes people out there that will take the money, they will fail, and then you've burnt your bridges within that client and possibly within a group around them.
Mike, how do you feel about being described as an entrepreneur who went into a space that is going to be the competitive space going forward? It has been, even over the last 3-4 years that you've been operating. How scary was it?
I like to call myself an adtrepreneur. I like to create up new words all the time. They're Sharmanisms. Anyway, back to the story. It was very scary, and I think Melissa Attry actually gave me one of the best pieces of advice. She and I met on Twitter while I was still in London and via Skype, and she and I used to chat a lot, and we have a very similar background in terms of our strategic, traditional PR and stuff.
Our resident,
And I think she's got a spider bite today. Hope you're well, Mel. Don't die on us. Thanks.
Yes, please, Mel. Thank you. We need you here.
And she gave me one of the best pieces of advice, and her advice was, don't let the financial fears cripple you. And I think that's the problem that we get into our heads. And I mean, I've read the Who Moved My Cheese and, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and all these rubbish books about starting your own business and saving, and no disrespect to your saving talk earlier. But the point is that once you've gone and you've taken the leap of faith and you've got the right people around you, things will work out. Like if you have passion and you believe in yourself, it'll work. And now, I mean, I always had in the back of my head, I am employable. If something fails, I can go and get a job. But now 4 years down the line, and we've just launched our second new business called Webfluential, you almost become like you have an invisible shield of strength about not caring about money anymore. Money but doesn't become the thing that you worry about. And it's a proper cliche, but passion is the thing that'll keep you going. And you have incredibly high highs and incredibly low lows. But I mean, I wouldn't want this any other way. It's like the best drug in the world, entrepreneur drugs.
Mike, you've picked very sexy brands. I'm looking at your website and I'm seeing No Regret Friday, which is SAB. I'm seeing the 5 Gum Experience. I'm having a look at the Nando's stuff that you guys are talking about. I also took time this morning to watch your video on the front of your website, which is kind of a YouTube showreel of what you've done. You've also got Converse in there as well. These are sexy brands. They're young, they're vibrant, they're in your face. They're brands that you can do a lot with. I've got 2 questions. The first question is, what about those brands that are not so sexy? I'm gonna use an example. For example, a Sasol, or a blue chip company that's been there forever, although that has been SAB. But something that is not as sexy as those brands. Is that something that you'd be prepared to tackle? Would that be a bit more of a challenge, or is that just something that is not on your screen at the moment?
No, I think we are doing some work with some of the banks and some insurance companies as well. And, I mean, I'm not just saying this because F&B is your sponsor, but
sure.
I mean, they're kind of positioned as the sexiest of the banks right now. And other than them, brands need to know what they are, and it's almost like a personal thing, and that comes across in their tone of voice on social media in terms of their content. And a lot of times brands don't know what they are. They want to be a Nando's, or they want to be a cool kid brand. But if you're not a cool kid brand, then you don't have to put the pressure on yourself to be like that. A lot of service brands, we using them because it's a grudge purchase. So I always use the example if I talk at conferences, for example, we'll just make up a bank. We'll call it the Purple Bank, just so that we don't offend anyone. But if the Purple Bank, if I could go to that site and I could go there and I know I wanted to start a business and I needed a business loan, or hey, I wanted to go and get a home loan, or hey, I wanted X, Y, and Z loan. Then if I could go to the site and if I could watch a 30-second to a minute tutorial, and it will tell me, these are all the things that you need to do before you've even walked in the branch. People get so frustrated because they go to the branch, but they haven't done the research to know what they need.
Yep.
And then they get frustrated with the poor teller who can't do anything, and then people want to kill each other, and then it becomes awkward. So what I would like to see is more functional content for functional brands. So here you go. Here's your 30-second. You want to start a business, you need to have this document from SARS, this information, this piece of paper, this CK1, all these different elements, so that by the time you get to the branch, you've got everything you need. And below that video, to actually have a tick box of all the things that you need, so that you can print that out and you can put all your information. That also helps the banks with the SEO, because you're getting the words in actual text, and it's helping to be a little bit more functional for us with OCD who can't actually read a list and we just want to watch the video.
So Mike, that brings us back to that discussion we had about content and how important content is in the digital space, and that's really what you've built your business on. Do you think 2014 in the digital space is the year of clients and advertisers and sponsors and brands starting to appreciate what we actually mean by content, because it's been misinterpreted?
I think that last year we saw a lot more brave brands actually creating content purely for digital, and that was really exciting. We've also, last year we had some really good success with the Bryphone parody that we did for Castle Lager, and a project we worked on was the Creepy Crawly Wrangler towards the end of the year. And I mean, those are seeing tangible year-on-year sales increases by more than 50-60%, which is really exciting. And I think brands really starting to have a look at not just taking a TV ad, putting it onto YouTube and pumping media behind it. Because the likes of Telkom was probably like the most viewed video from a brand point of view online, but I mean, they must be pumping millions into pre-rolls, and we know that people aren't wanting to watch that, but they're getting the views anyway. So what we're trying to do,
well, the first 5 seconds of the ad anyway, yeah.
Well, can't they make ads that are just 5 seconds?
Well,
Begs the question.
there has been a campaign that Ogilvy Cape Town did with the Audi R8, which was really successful and showed the acceleration in 0 to 3 seconds or whatever. But yeah, I think that there needs to be more bravery. Clients are scared, and at the same time, agencies are also scared of the online space because your budgets aren't as big yet. So I would much rather commission someone to make R1 million TV production, a TVC, and then get the commission off the 4, 5, 12 million rand media spend on that, because I'm getting my 20% markups or whatever I am off of that. Whereas digital, the budgets aren't as large, yet I'm putting as much fear and faith into that process, and I don't know that process. So that's why a lot of traditional agencies are not investing or not guiding their clients quick enough into the online space.
So I'd like to ask you, can we invite one of the traditional media agencies in? Let's get you back in here and let's have a little debate in studio, because it is a really important discussion and it's one that needs to be had.
Yeah. Would you be prepared to do that?
Sure, bring it. Can we get into one of those like fat suits and like wrestle each other?
I tell you what we'll do. We'll leave it up to you to decide who you'd like in here, and we will invite them. How's that?
Awesome, that sounds great.
Is that a deal?
Cool.
Deal.
On air, so it's recorded. It's printed tape with
I
time
think it's
code.
an important discussion.
Lives for eternity.
It's part of helping our
Yeah.
listeners and anyone who's running a business and who's starting to think about marketing, start to understand the space, hear the various sides of the argument,
Yep.
and reach their own conclusions. But those are the discussions that are not being had. They're being had behind closed doors. They need to be put out in the open.
It's a very interesting space. It seems as though some businesses are being left behind because they're too scared to go and play in that digital space, and those that are embracing it are having great success. I hope that this turns around and starts to become more viral, if you'll excuse the pun, with your business name. Finally, a very interesting one for me was the discovery of one of the most talented young musicians in South Africa, which is Matthew Mole. I see that was on your video as well. Quickly tell us about what happened there.
So Converse had a global campaign where they wanted to offer an unsigned act the chance to play at the famous 100 Club in London. So from a South African point of view, we worked on the blogger relations. We seeded a lot of that competition mechanic to the music influencers in South Africa and the guys that are passionate about up-and-coming South African musos and youngsters like Tex on Fire and the guys that really go above and beyond to promote local music. And along the process, musicians could upload a SoundCloud link or the YouTube video to an app on the Converse Facebook page, and then from there it was whittled down based on 3 independent judges, and then down a top 10 was created whereby the public could vote, and Matthew Mole was the first winner of the Converse Get Out of the Garage competition in South Africa. And there's a young guy called Geordie who's just won the most recent one. He's got an amazing sound, and I mean, I'm sure we'll be hearing him on a lot of the airwaves in the next few months.
You've got lots to say. We're very interested to listen. Thank you for your time today. It's been a great pleasure to chat to you. And I wish you all the strength in 2014 with Retroviral and your new businesses, your spin-off businesses that we haven't even touched on yet.
So much to talk about yet.
Maybe,
so much.
Maybe what we can do is in the next chat, when you're having a scrap with an original sort of standard agency, we can get some of those punts in there as well. Thank you so much for being with us today, Mike Sharman from retroviral.co.za. You're on Twitter. Can we get you there? Where can we find you?
Yeah, so the company account is at retroviral, very simple, and then I'm at Mike Sharman, singular man, not plural men.
Fantastic. Have a good day.
The Business on balls.co.za. Brought to you by FNB Business Banking.